"This isn't your home anymore, Margaret. Leave, or we'll call security." Those were the first words my ex-husband said to me after 34 years of marriage. I was standing in the same entryway where I had once carried in our newborn daughter Claire in my arms, where I had taped birthday banners and strung garland for Christmases and Thanksgivings that apparently no one else remembered the way I did. Now I stood there clutching the handle of a half-zipped suitcase, feeling as though the floor had dropped out from under me. Thomas's voice was sharp, rehearsed, and eerily devoid of any emotion. The man I once believed I'd grow old beside had become a stranger with a plan. His Rolex glinted as he checked the time, the very one I gifted him for our 25th anniversary. His eyes didn't meet mine, not even for a second. "You have 30 minutes to collect your belongings," he added flatly. "Anything left behind becomes our property." Our property. That word used to mean something. Behind him, Claire and Adam stood stiffly. My children, my heart, my history were standing with him. Claire with her arms folded like a corporate executive presiding over a termination. Adam avoiding my eyes, pretending not to notice the pain blooming across my face. Claire's voice cut the air like ice. "Mom, it's legal. The house has been in Dad's name for years. You signed the deed. You don't have a claim anymore. The judge already ruled. We're just carrying out the terms." Like I was a tenant overstaying a lease, not their mother, not the woman who'd spent decades putting them before everything else. I couldn't speak. My throat tightened as I turned robotically and moved through the house, my house, for what I knew would be the last time. I pulled drawers, opened closets, reached for the things that meant something. My mother's pearls, a faded photograph of my father, the quilt my grandmother had made by hand. How do you pack up 34 years in 30 minutes? Every corner held a memory. Claire's first steps in the living room, Adam's middle school science project we built in the garage, the kitchen where I once taught them both to bake banana bread. Not one item in this home hadn't touched my hands or heart, but that didn't matter now. Back in the foyer, Thomas stood with the front door open like a doorman, as if the longer I stayed, the more I was contaminating his space. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked, more to myself than to any of them. "That's not our concern anymore," Claire replied, her voice clean and clipped. Then Thomas stepped forward and dropped something cold into my palm. My house key. "You won't be needing this anymore." The door shut behind me with a final, echoing click. I stood outside, blinking in the sunlight, surrounded by 3 suitcases and a cardboard box, the sum total of my life, now that they'd taken everything else. Through the window, I saw them, my family, hugging, laughing, toasting. They believed it was over. They believed they had won. What they didn't know was that I had been preparing for this day for years, quietly, methodically, and tonight it would begin. If this story already touches something inside you, please like, share, and leave a comment. And don't forget to follow Real Her Stories. Someone out there needs to hear this too. Linda opened the door before I even knocked, her arms already outstretched like she had been waiting by the window, sensing that this day would come. "I told you," she said softly, pulling me in. "I told you years ago, Margaret, that man was laying traps. He didn't want a wife. He wanted a witness who couldn't speak." The warmth of her home was jarring after the sterile cruelty of what I'd just been through. The guest room was already made, as if she had known all along. Maybe she had. Linda had always been the one voice of caution when everyone else praised Thomas's ambition. "I just never thought Claire and Adam would help him do it," I said, my voice cracking in the safety of her kitchen, where she poured tea neither of us would drink. Linda didn't rush to disagree. She just placed a steady hand over mine. "They didn't betray you. Not yet. They betrayed the you they've never really known." I was silent for a moment, then reached into my bag and pulled out the small leather-bound notebook, weathered but still solid. The binding had loosened from being opened and closed so many times in secret. I slid it across the table. "What's this?" she asked. "My insurance policy," I said, my voice steadier now. "Started it 10 years ago, the first time I noticed Thomas hiding receipts, taking calls in the garage, changing passwords. Inside were dates, names, account numbers, and photocopies of documents I'd slipped out of drawers when he wasn't looking. Meetings with clients who didn't exist, wire transfers to places he claimed we'd never even visited, fraud, embezzlement. Lies that stretched further than I could have ever imagined when I first wrote down the words offshore, Grand Cayman." Linda whistled low. "You could burn him with this." "I intend to." That evening, she made a call to someone I never thought I'd need to speak to. Daniel Prescott, Thomas's oldest rival. The man who had once whispered to me at a charity gala, "You know he's going to take you down with him one day, don't you?" I had laughed nervously then. Now I wished I had listened. Daniel met us the next day in a glass-walled office overlooking the river. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed, he scanned the notebook with a professional's calm but a friend's disbelief. "This is thorough," he said, flipping a page. "Too thorough for him to walk away from this clean. But there's a problem." "What kind of problem?" He looked up. "Your son, Adam." I felt something inside me drop. He's CFO. Some of these signatures, they're his. Maybe he didn't know what he was signing, but if this comes to light, he could go down too. My stomach twisted. Adam, my quiet, thoughtful boy who used to collect baseball cards and cry at Disney movies. Had I protected him too well, or not enough? That night, back at Linda's, I sat in silence until my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Mom, I need to talk. I found something. Meet me at the cabin, alone." The message was signed, Adam, the cabin. Our family retreat tucked into the Blue Ridge Mountains, bought in my name before marriage, untouched in the divorce. The one place I still had full ownership, the one place Thomas couldn't touch. But before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. Linda opened it, and in stepped Claire, impeccable as always. Even her anger was polished. She walked past Linda like she lived there. "So this is where you're hiding?" she said, scanning the modest kitchen with a curled lip. "I'm not hiding, Claire. Your father kicked me out." She waved my words away. "Cut the drama. We both know you've taken documents that belong to Dad. We're willing to keep this quiet if you return them now." "What documents?" "Don't play dumb. It doesn't suit you. He said you've been collecting things, building a case." "Maybe I have. Maybe I haven't. What's it to you?" She straightened, adjusting the gold bracelet I'd once given her for graduation. "If you go to war with Dad, you'll lose everything. Again." I stood. "I already have." She hesitated for a second, something flickered in her eyes. Then she reached into her purse and slid an envelope onto the table. "Sign these. You walk away from any claims to Dad's assets and this all goes away." "And if I don't?" She turned to leave. "Then you'll regret it. So will Adam." When the door shut behind her, Linda sat down, her face pale. "She's not just warning you," she said. "That was a threat. You think Adam's message is safe?" I looked down at my phone, rereading his words, and for the first time in years, I wasn't sure if I could trust what I saw. But I knew one thing. I wasn't walking away. Not this time. The cabin stood still in the dusk, wrapped in silence and memories. The gravel crunched beneath my tires as I parked beside the pine-lined path, heart thudding in rhythm with each cautious step I took toward the door. This place had once been sacred, where we grilled burgers on summer nights, where Adam learned to fish, where Claire chased fireflies barefoot with her hair wild and free. It had always been our safe place, but tonight it felt like a trap. Still, I had to believe Adam was telling the truth. I pushed the door open slowly, calling out, "Adam!" Silence. Then suddenly, movement. Before I could register what was happening, two figures stepped out from the shadows, Thomas and Claire. Between them, my son sat slumped in a wooden chair, his hands bound with zip ties, his face bruised and bloodied. He lifted his head just enough to meet my eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered. I barely had time to react before Thomas stepped forward, the edge of something hard and metallic flashing beneath his coat. "So predictable, Margaret," he sneered. "Always the hero, always a few steps too late." "Let him go," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "He's your son." "No, he's the weak link," Thomas replied, pulling the gun fully into view. "And you're the enemy. You've been planning this, haven't you? Trying to destroy everything I built." "You built it on lies," I said, "and sooner or later, they catch up." His eyes narrowed. "Open the safe." "I'm not opening anything with you pointing that at me." "I won't ask again." The gun clicked. I walked slowly to the bedroom, every nerve on fire. I lifted the loose floorboard, spun the old combination, the date of our wedding, the day Claire was born, the day Adam lost his first tooth. He never knew I'd changed the code. Inside the safe was a manila folder, packed, sealed, thick with what looked like everything he wanted. "These are copies," I said carefully, handing it to him. He didn't even wait to check. The moment the folder was in his hands, he lowered the weapon. In that second of distraction, I moved. I grabbed the old oil lamp off the bedside table and hurled it at the wall. It shattered, fire igniting instantly across the dry wooden panels. Flames erupted. Claire screamed. Adam kicked his chair backward with a thud, and Sarah, who had followed me in secret, lunged through the back door and began cutting through his restraints. "Get out!" I yelled as smoke filled the cabin. "Now!" As we stumbled into the rain-soaked night, I turned once, just once, and saw Claire standing frozen in the threshold. Torn. "Claire!" I called. "Come with us!" Her eyes met mine. Something cracked in her, a hesitation, maybe even regret. And then she turned back into the smoke. We drove for hours that night, silent but alive. The next morning I met with Julia, Thomas's first ex-wife, the woman he tried to erase long before I came into the picture. "You were always the clever one," she said, pouring coffee in her Boston apartment. "I stayed silent too long, but I've been collecting, watching. We're going to finish this." Between Julia, Daniel, and a quiet contact in federal investigations, we coordinated what would be the final chapter in Thomas's long run of manipulation and fraud. Julia held the key, a ledger, her own version of my notebook, going back decades, evidence of a pattern, laundering, false investors, stolen pensions. But the most terrifying part? Thomas had booked a private flight to a country with no extradition agreement. He planned to disappear. And he planned to leave Adam and me as the fall. "He's setting up the perfect story," Julia warned. "He'll claim you were bitter, that Adam embezzled under your influence, that you two tried to burn the place down to hide the evidence." So we set the stage. The old shipping warehouse was Thomas's idea. A final exchange, he said. He'd bring Adam. We'd bring the real documents, alone. But we weren't alone. Hidden under my collarbone was a wire. 2 federal agents waited in vans just outside. Daniel tracked Adam's phone. Julia sat at my side like a steel blade in human form. The warehouse was quiet, too quiet. Thomas emerged from the shadows first, gun still in hand. Adam restrained once more, his face paler now, tired but alive. "You never could stay out of things, Margaret," Thomas said, "always meddling." "You stole people's lives," I said. "You left me with nothing, but you made one mistake." "What's that?" "You underestimated how dangerous a woman becomes when she's got nothing left to lose." I took a step forward, extending the envelope of real documents like bait. The moment Thomas reached, I lunged, not for the gun, but for time. Enough time. We fell hard. The gun fired, pain tore through my arm, but I didn't stop. Somewhere behind us, a shout, "FBI, drop your weapon!" Red lights, movement shouting, hands on shoulders. Thomas was wrestled to the ground, cursing, screaming, his face wild. "You'll regret this, Margaret. You'll regret everything." I lay on the cold concrete, blood seeping through my sleeve, watching as Adam was cut free, as Julia and Claire stepped through the open warehouse doors. Thomas didn't know it yet, but this time he really had lost. It's been 6 months. The house I live in now is smaller, no marble countertops. No grand foyer, but it's mine. Every square inch of it, bought with the quiet inheritance Thomas never knew I had, invested and protected all those years while he thought I wasn't paying attention. There's a garden in the back that I tend every morning. I planted hydrangeas by the fence and tomatoes near the kitchen window. I sit on the porch with my coffee, listening to birds instead of arguments. Peace feels like a miracle when you've forgotten what it sounds like. Adam visits every Sunday. Sometimes he brings groceries, sometimes just a hug. Claire comes too. She never says the word sorry, but she doesn't have to. The way she watches me now, with a softness that used to be buried under her father's shadow, says more than words ever could. They were victims of him too. I see that now. I lost a home, a marriage, a version of my life I thought would last forever. But what I found in its place was clarity, dignity, my own strength. Not the loud kind, but the kind that grows slowly in the quiet after the storm. Sometimes starting over is the greatest act of justice. He thought throwing me out would be the end of my story, but it was only the beginning of the life I was meant to live. If you felt this story in your bones, I want you to know you're not alone. Please like, comment, and share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow Real Her Stories for more powerful journeys, just like this one. Until next time, take care of your heart and your future.